Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. I feel like I'm a little bit late to the party on this one, but today we're going to be setting my 2025 TBR, the specific 25 books I want to read in this upcoming year. There were so many books to choose from, it was honestly hard to narrow it down, but I tried to do three main categories. The first category is going to be series that I'm continuing. Second category, which is a huge focus for me in 2025, is reading new authors. So a lot of books by authors that I don't have any previous experience with. And then our final category, which I'm going to keep till the end, is new releases. I feel like there's been a lot of videos come out about new releases. So if you aren't interested in hearing about new releases, those are going to be at the end of the video. So before we hop in, make sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And let's go ahead and talk about some series that I want to continue this year. This first book is the only one that I'm ambitious enough to actually include as the last book in the series. Even though I have a couple other books to read before this, that's going to be Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas. I am making it priority one to finish the Throne of Glass series this year. I've read the first three books. I did a reading vlog on it. I plan on doing a reading vlog for the rest of the series as well, but I'll be honest, these start getting real thick, so I have just been putting it off. I don't want to spoil anything super important for me, but I think this book is like 983 pages. So I am just truly a little bit terrified of this. I'd ideally like to get this done within the first few months this year. That might be a little bit delusional, but I will definitely be updating y'all as I continue and finish this series. Book 2 is continuing the Belladonna series. Belladonna was the last book I read within 2024, but I absolutely loved it. I am very curious to see how Signa and Death's story continue into Book 2. This series has been my first introduction to gothic fantasies, but I really am enjoying it so far. I really like Adeline Grace's writing where it's flowery, but not overly descriptive. Belladonna was just over 400 pages. This is around 450. I feel like she's able to do a lot in her stories without them being overly long. And as mentioned before, I'm just excited to see where Signa and Death's story goes from here. Within December, I read the first Harry Potter book, and I would love to continue this series this year. I did only put book 2 on this TBR list. This is one where I could have gone crazy and gone to the end of the series, but I took a breath and said, let's be realistic. I have a lot of series that I want to start this year. Let's keep it small. Let's just try and get to the next book within the Harry Potter series, which I think is very doable. I will say that for me, the series is very much fall and winter vibes, so I most likely will take a big hiatus from reading this summer, but hopefully I'm able to check off a few more books from this series by the end of 2025. Don't have the physical for this one because I am reading this series through Kindle Unlimited, but I'm wanting to continue the Windy City series by Liz Tom Ford. These are just very fun, spicy sports romances where it's more of an interconnected series following different couples. Caught Up follows a single dad who is also a MLB player. I believe it turns into a bit of a nanny romance, but that's really all I know. I was able to read books 1 and 2 in the series really quickly last year, hoping the same for book 3 and maybe even continuing into book 4, but we shall see. Hopping into our next section, which is going to be new to me authors. You will see that quite a few books on this section are from my book haul that I just did last week. I knew that this was going to be a focus for me in 2025, which is why you might see some overlap. This first book, however, which is Threadneedle by Carrie Thomas, I have had on my bookshelves coming up on a year now. Back in March, whenever I decided, oh, I think I want to do book videos on YouTube, I went to Barnes and purchased like 12 books. This is the only book remaining that I have not read from that haul, and I think it's just time to get it over with. It is pretty chunky, which is why I have delayed it. It also very much is giving winter, which is why I have delayed this as well. I haven't heard like anyone talk about this book before, but it does have decent ratings. On Fable, the book summary says, in a hidden magical city of London, Anna must resist the allure of magic which killed her parents. Will she succumb or defy her aunt's teachings? If I don't read this within the next month or two, this is gonna have to wait all the way until fall time. But if I don't read this by the end of 2025, I'm gonna have to unhaul this because I cannot have a book sitting on my TBR for over 2 years. This next one is a romance read, which I'm so excited to get to. Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. I have only heard fantastic reviews about this book. The whole premise around this book is around an accidental pregnancy that happens after a one-night stand. Typically, that's not a trope that many people are a fan of. However, I've heard that it is just so well done within this story. This author has a couple other books that I know are highly rated, and I think a continuation of this series coming out this year. Would love to give her writing a go, and if I enjoy it, read more books by her, but I have very high hopes for Out on a Limb. This next one is similar to Threadneedle, where I'm adding it to the 2025 TBR to hold me accountable. I've had this for a while. I've also included it on multiple monthly TBRs and have not gotten to it, so I really need to prioritize Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This is a YA fantasy series which also has a King Arthur retelling element. 16-year-old Bree Matthews joins a residential program for high schoolers at UNC Chapel Hill. However, her very first night on campus, she witnesses a magical attack. She then learns about a secret society of so-called Legendborn students that hunt the creatures down. She then gets brought into this magical world and realizes that she might have some magic within herself as well. I know that Carrie Can Read rates this series very highly, so I don't know why I keep delaying this one other than the length. I think that what's inside this book is going to be very good. I just need to allocate the time to actually read it. As I mentioned in my recent haul, this one is a 5-star prediction. Skyward by Brandon Sanderson is the start of a YA fantasy series. I have only heard amazing things about the man, the myth, the legend, Brando Sando. I'm just way too intimidated to start with his adult fantasy backlog. Some of those books are 1,400 pages plus, so I said, let's ease ourselves into the Cosmere and begin with his YA series. I don't know if this is accurate at all, but this book is totally giving me Star Wars vibes. Our female main character, Spenza, has always wanted to be a pilot, where pilots are the heroes of what's left of the human race, and becoming one has always been her dream. But her fate is intertwined with that of her father, a pilot who was killed years ago when he abruptly deserted his team, leaving Spenza's chances of attending flight school as slim to none. No one will let Spenza forget what her father did, yet fate works in mysterious ways. This is the start of a series, so I'm sure there's going to be a ton of twists and turns that happen. And like mentioned, this is a 5-star prediction, so I really hope he doesn't let me down with this one. This next book, I was 100% influenced by Haley Pham. I picked up You Belong With Me by Vari McFarlane. All year, Haley has just been raving about this author, and I think read her entire backlog. This is the only book by the author that was available in my barn, so I just picked it up without even reading the back. But a very brief description of this book is that a woman finds love with a famous actor, but as their relationship is in the spotlight, challenges arise from jealous others and their own past. From Haley's descriptions, even though these books are categorized as romance, they do have a very literary fiction tone to them as well, which I'm very excited about. I love an emotional read. If a book is able to grab me emotionally, that's what leads to those 4 and 5-star ratings. Very hopeful for this one, and if I do like this author's writing, I already have a few other books within my sights that I want to get to as well. I'm very excited to add this one to the list because my bestie actually just sent me this book for Christmas. That is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I have had this book on my want to read list for so long. For some reason, I haven't gotten around to it. Probably that's because I don't even know what this book series is about. I just heard a lot of people rave about it. And I know that this is the start of like a huge series. I think this book has 4+ books in the series, but there's also like a prequel series which has multiple books as well. This opens you up to a full world similar to a Sarah J Maas world, I believe, but my friend has rated this 5 stars and said that this is one of her favorite series to date, and we do have very similar taste in fantasy novels, so I do trust her judgment. On Fable, this is categorized as adventurous, dark, and spicy. The summary says, From Blood and Ash is a captivating and action-packed fantasy where a forbidden love and a fallen kingdom blur the line between duty and desire. Love. Cannot wait. I think this book and this series is really going to help for my inevitable book hangover that's going to come from Throne of Glass, and something I'm very much looking forward to read. I'm not sure if you've noticed a theme, but I've included so many fantasy series on this TBR so far. I clearly just love pain and making my life harder for myself. So for a short, easy romance to add to the list, I had The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. This is a second chance romance where 2 exes are forced together to help with their best friend's wedding. It takes place in Napa Valley. I'm hoping that it's super romantic and atmospheric. If I like it, I'm pretty sure she has another book coming out in 2025 that I can check out as well. To add another fantasy series to the list, I have Lightlark by Alex Aster. I think this is going to be a very quick-paced novel. It's just barely over 400 pages, which is pretty impressive for the start of a fantasy series. And I don't know why, but it's giving me Powerless vibes. I do know that there is a trial-based element. I do think there's a love triangle that happens. And I think that books 2 and 3 are already out in the series. So if I love it, I can continue to binge it, no problem. For the last book that I have on the list as a physical, I'd love to have an opportunity to read Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto. This is a rivals to lovers following two musicians. I've heard that them playing music together is really captivating and pulls you in within the story. If I love this author, I know that she has another romance novel that I can read, and I believe she's branching out into the fantasy genre with her new release this year, which I might end up checking out if I like this one. Next on the list is the Shadow and Bone trilogy. A book that I really wanted to get to last year was Six of Crows. However, I've heard that if you read Six of Crows first, it does spoil things that happen within Shadow and Bone. So I'd like to read that before going into Six of Crows, just so I can like fully absorb and love that world whenever I enter into it. A quick summary of this series is: in a world of monsters and darkness, orphan soldier Alina discovers her untamed magic and becomes entangled in a web of royalty and intrigue. I do know that this has also been made into a show, so if I love the series, I would love to check out the show as well. But really the ultimate goal of reading this series is to read Six of Crows. Next we have A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This is another fantasy series where there's parallel universes going on within London. So there's like 4 different Londons, all are a little bit different. I believe our main character uses magic to get in between the different worlds. But other than that, I'm not really too sure about what goes on within this series. This is the start of a trilogy, and I have heard that this is kind of the easiest introduction to V.E. Schwab to determine if the writing style is for you. Next on the list is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. Again, with this one, I really just want to read the series so I can get to her next series, which is Once Upon a Broken Heart. But again, if I were to start with that series, I would spoil a lot of what happens within Caraval, which I don't want to do to myself. I have heard that the audiobooks of the Caraval trilogy are amazing, so I plan on just listening to this trilogy before hopping into the physical books of the next series. But again, I didn't want to include 6 different books on this list, so I just included Caraval to keep it simple for myself. I have heard that almost all of the books feel a little bit like a fever dream, but I am excited nonetheless. The final book within the new authors to me section is The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. This fantasy series I feel like has absolutely popped off within the last few months, where I've been hearing a lot of people talk about this. I do know that this is going to be a very emotional story. We follow a mother and a son, which already I feel like is a very interesting dynamic. We almost never follow that specific relationship in books, but from the reviews that I have heard, women are very put down in this society, even though our FMC has a warrior history and background, which comes into play as their country starts being attacked. I know that there is some heartbreak ahead for me, so I'm gonna need to read this whenever I'm in a strong mental place. This again is a 5-star prediction because I think this is going to be such an impactful story to read. We are on our final section, which is the new releases coming out within 2025. And if you know me at all, you obviously know that the first book on this list is going to be Fearless by Lauren Roberts. In April, we are finally getting the ending of the Powerless trilogy. I am so excited because book 2 was a pretty large letdown for a lot of people. I think Lauren Roberts has a lot to wrap up within this story, but I am giving full faith and trust in her ability to do so. But book 2 did leave us off on a huge cliffhanger, and I'm very excited to see how everything is wrapped up. Next on the list is Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli. This is book 2 following Heartless Hunter. To me, Powerless and Heartless Hunter have very similar vibes. True enemies to lovers trope if you've ever read one, but Heartless Hunter follows a witch and a witch hunter. Both were pursuing one another under false pretenses and really just trying to gain information from one another. Book 1 left us off in a crazy place, but since this is a duology, we get to see how everything is wrapped up at the end of book 2. And I am just so curious on if these characters are going to be able to work back together within the story, because like mentioned, this is true enemies to lovers. Next we have Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, which is coming out in April. I'll be honest, haven't even read the summary of this book. Emily Henry is just simply an auto-buy author for me, so I will continue to buy everything the woman puts out. All of Emily Henry's books are categorized as romance. However, like I mentioned before, they have a very literary fiction tone to them. And I've heard that's very much the case for this one. It has the most literary fiction tone out of any of her books thus far. Goodreads says that 2 writers compete for the chance to tell the larger-than-life story of a woman with more than a couple of plot twists up her sleeve. So with that knowledge, I am excited to read about 2 authors, kind of similar to Beach Read in that way, because we were following 2 authors within that one as well. Beach Read was a 5 stars for me, so hopefully this one is as well. But in my eyes, Emily Henry can do no wrong. All the way in August, The Blonde Who Came In From the Cold by Ali Carter will be released. This is book 2 following the Blonde Identity, which whenever I read that, I was like, there's gotta be a book 2 coming because it has a very open-ended ending. And shortly after I read that book, she did release that book 2 was coming out. All of Ali Carter's books have a spy mystery element to them. Within The Blonde Identity, we follow a woman who wakes up in Paris with amnesia. However, people are after her and coming to kill her. She has to team up with her MMC to try and stay alive. There's some twists, there are some turns. It is a bit predictable, but it was so quick and easy to read. I'm a huge Ali Carter stan, so she is an auto-buy author for me. I'm excited to see where the series goes because I think we're going to be following the other sister within the story. Releasing in February is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. Let's just take a moment for this cover. This is the perfect cover to be releasing in February. This is giving me such Valentine's Day vibes. I don't know much about the story other than it was heavily inspired by Sleepless in Seattle. And I saw that Ellen Catherine got an early release of this book and rated it a 5 stars. So after seeing that, I immediately added it to the TBR. Next we have It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. The first and only book I've read by this author was a 5 stars for me, so I'm hoping the same going into this next one. From her other books, I found that her main characters are a little bit older, which I really enjoy because it can be frustrating to read a lot of books set between young characters in their 20s because there can just naturally be a lot of miscommunication, a lot of immaturity. Didn't find that at all within the first book I read by her, which was Summer Romance. All of her books have a very summery vibe, so I'm really looking forward to whenever this is released in May. In June, Ashley Poston will be releasing her new novel, It Sounds Like Love. This is another book centering around music, following a songwriter and a musician who are magically connected by the song within our FMC's head. All of Ashley Poston's novels have a magical realism element to it, which I feel like really make them unique and a standout. I've rated all of her previous books very highly, so I have a feeling this will be a good one as well. And finally on the list is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. I read a book by this author in October, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. It was so sweet and heartwarming, a very cozy fall read. As this book comes out in July, I think I'm going to save it for the fall time as well. It has a similar cover to the previous book I mentioned, but I don't think these are interconnected. Goodreads says that this is a whimsical and heartwarming novel about a witch who has a second chance to get her magical powers and her life back on track. Very excited for this one because this author just does cozy vibes so well. In their previous book, they were able to create such an amazing found family trope. Not sure what we have in store for this next one, but I think it's going to be an amazing fall time read. So that is it, y'all. That is the 25 books I want to read in 2025. I feel like I set myself up for success. I chose books that I'm really excited about. I tried to be strategic and just pick the next book within the series, but who knows, we'll probably have to do a check-in at the end of this year to see how I did with this list. If you think there's a book I'm missing from my list or a book you are very excited to read within 2025, make sure to let me know down below. But this is where I will love you and leave you for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye guys!